and woman has changed hardly at all since we've been here on this earth, but the demands that technology has placed on us is pushing us to change. So I just want to talk about some of the examples of like what we once believed, and then think about what we now must do. So where it all began, it turns out that the three most dangerous words in science, in medicine, and as it turns out in fatigue management are in my experience. And the reason for that is because we all have personal opinions, we all have ideas about what works for us, we all have a worldview about how things should be, and most of that is not based on any data whatsoever. It's based on our personal experiences. And if you don't think that's a problem, then let's look at some of the things that we, almost everybody, once believed for quite some time. And we can start with the sun revolves around the earth. And this dates back to 600 BC, and we held on to this one for 1,500 years. And it's obviously true, right? Because if we all go outside, we can see how the sun moves across the sky. So anyone with any common sense can tell you the sun is moving and we're staying here in the same place. So of course we believe this. Disease is caused by bad air. So, you know, back during the cholera, Black Death epidemic, then healthcare providers would often stuff these masks full of flowers so that they wouldn't have to smell this stinky air that surrounded all this disease and death, with the thought that, well, if they don't have to smell that, then they won't catch the disease. And so, you know, obviously, there's some truth to that, because when you're around all this death or decay, it doesn't smell very good. So that bad air thing is a real problem. Health is a function of the four humors. So since 200 AD, it was thought if you kept these humors in balance, the yellow bile, the black bile, the blood, and the phlegm, then you would be healthy. And in fact, apparently, if you put blood in a glass container where you can see through it, then it tends to separate into layers. And so people thought, ah, well, there's some evidence right there that these four humors are in fact, you know, at the bottom of our health functions. And of course, smoking is good for you. I mean, in the 1600s, smoking became widespread in Europe, and you know, it's relaxing. And a French physician actually cured a case of tumor with tobacco poultices. So we can all agree that smoking is good for us. And cocaine is a wonder drug. You know, Sigmund Freud just praised, you know, the wonders of cocaine. And William Halsted was actually the surgeon who came up with the resident training program for physicians in the U.S. He was well known for his ability to work, you know, long hours without rest. It turns out he was actually a cocaine addict, and there's now been a study published on that. So, you know, great thing here. Good painkiller, alleviates depression, gives you energy, etc. And then, of course, sleep is a waste of time. And, you know, we know this because people like Thomas Edison was known as a sleepless wonder. He expected his people to, like, work for, you know, 21 hours a day, just like he did. Ben Franklin said, you know, up sluggard, don't waste your life in the grave. There'll be time for sleeping and up. And of course, Donald Trump, who's been in the news, at least in the U.S. quite a bit lately, said in his book something like Kick-Ass in Big Business or whatever, that if you really were a dedicated professional and you were into your job, then you wouldn't need to sleep. And obviously that's true, because when you're, you know, snoozing away, you're obviously not getting very much done, right? So those were things, examples of things that we all widely believed, but it turns out they weren't exactly true, despite how our perceptions may have led us astray. So the geocentric theory was disregarded in 1543, so think how long we believe that one. And in fact, lots of things revolve around the sun and not the other way around. Disease is not caused by bad air. That was disregarded in the 1800s with the germ theory. Health is not a function before humor, so once we had the introduction of the microscope, we learned that there's lots of things that we can't see with the naked eye that are in fact responsible for our health. And smoking is not good for you. Now, you know, we hung on to that one for a long time. It was only in the 1960s that we had these Surgeon General reports and so forth outlining that smoking causes cancer and a host of other health-related problems. And cocaine, in fact, is not the wonder drug that we once thought it could be. You know, in part, this is kind of a similar problem to some of the fatigue issues we have. The short-term effects may not be that bad, but once it gets to be a chronic thing, then we get into big problems very quickly. Sleep, it turns out, is not a waste of time, but you know, you have to think about overcoming these sleep myths and these fatigue myths is quite a problem when you think how long we believe some of those other things that I just talked about. Sleep science is relatively young. In fact, most of what we know about sleep was discovered in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And if you ever want to read a great book about some of the major basic discoveries in sleep, there's one by Bill DeMint called The Promise of Sleep. The guy's a great storyteller and also a great researcher. It's a wonderful book to read and also very informative. But a lot of that thing, like the naming of the sleep stages and the discovery of rapid eye movement of sleep and a lot of the basics of sleep, we didn't know until the 70s. Well, now, every other week, we have a new paper that comes out that tells us how important sleep is for health, safety, mood, and cognition. Although we still don't fully know why we sleep to this very day.